Hey everyone, Cooper here, host of the fine podcast you're listening to. I just want to let you know that the episode you clicked on has a format that is very heavily inspired by a podcast called The Bookening. To be clear, our thoughts and opinions in this episode are our own, but the format is very similar to this podcast. I just wanted to give you a heads up and give credit where it is due. With that out of the way, enjoy the show. Coming up next, Booking It finishes their discussion on The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Everyone, and welcome back to Booking It. I'm, of course, your humble and eloquent host, Mr. Cooper Cobbs. And joining me today is my very good friend, Mr. Tanner Lewis. How you doing, Tanner?
I'm doing pretty good, and I would greatly appreciate it if that accent was lost pretty quickly.
I think I'm just gonna, talk like this for this episode. You know what I mean, Master Tanner. Okay, that's actually kind of racist. I'm gonna start doing that now. Anyway, talking about Huckleberry Finn, it's me and Tanner. Isaiah's gone because he's at Disney World. What a loser. Decided to go to Disney World with his family because, not because, but because they could. And also he's missing out on the podcast. But hey, who can blame him, I guess? Who can blame him? If you haven't noticed, by the way, guys, really, I haven't been able to do a podcast with all three of the people because for some reason, Tanner and Isaiah have an inexplicable feud to where they will do a podcast with me, but they won't do one with each other for some reason. Because this year, I don't think we've had a podcast where all three of us have been on together. It's either been me and Tanner or me and Isaiah. And Tanner, would you like to speak into this inexplicable feud going on between you and Isaiah?
The episodes go better when me and Isaiah aren't battling over the minute details.
Really? Whoa. You just threw down. Anyway, I guess you could do that. We kind of, me and Isaiah took some time since you weren't on to, throw some shade in your direction. Anyway, by the way, did you see this photo of this Mandalorian helmet he bought?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, it's like Isaiah bought this over $100, really real-looking Mandalorian helmet from the Mandalorian TV show. And wow, yeah,
it's pretty scary.
Yeah,
actually,
it's impressive. It's pretty scary. It looks pretty real. Maybe we should post it on Patreon. You know what? I'm gonna do that right now.
Go ahead. While you do that, I'm going to have a few things to say about Huck Finn. Because technically that's what we're discussing today, not Isaiah and him. First of all, Huck Finn hits me hard as somebody that lives at the lake and essentially on a river. Because Lake Texoma is a part of the Red River, believe it or not. So I actually do live on a river, if you're counting the specifics. But it hits me hard because it just makes me want to go and get out in my canoe. It's just a vibe. Anyways, it was a thought.
Which is why it should have ended that way. All right, Kachiga, it's published. All right, let's talk about Huck Finn. Tanner, you talked about that. We got to talk about the book, actually, because we didn't really get to talk. We talked about the American experience and why we feel drawn to stories like Huck Finn and stuff like that. But anyway, we're actually going to talk about the character of Huckleberry Finn. Tanner, do you like the character of Huckleberry Finn? Is he a good character?
Yes. I think he's a good portrayal of the He's a good portrayal of the typical American boy, or what they're supposed to be, not
what they're supposed to be. Yeah, these people who fake their own deaths and go on down the river all by themselves. Yeah.
Yes, this is like what every boy dreams of, and instead sits and wastes his life on cod.
Yeah. Instead, why'd you play cod when you go, catch some cod? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that worked out beautifully, Tanner. Unintentionally beautiful. But yeah, I mean, Huck is great. Like I said, he's a fun character of, hey, look, this is like this 12-year-old boy, or maybe he's a little older, this 12-year-old boy who everyone wants to really be like because he's just going to go out and have some adventures on a river for several months. You know what I mean?
I mean, who doesn't want, I still have moments where I'm like, if only America was wild again, and then I could go down the river. But then I think of the
Yeah, it's
mosquitoes,
true.
and then I think, do I actually want to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Every man wants to be an outdoorsman until he encounters mosquitoes.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's rough. But yeah, I mean, Huck Finn
Why
is
did God?
honestly
That is the one question I'm asking God when I get to heaven. Why?
no Adam and Eve. Really, like, there's no way they drew blood before the fall.
What happened? Why?
I mean,
Why?
well, okay, that's a good question. Let's just side tangent. But what did mosquitoes do before the fall? If we're assuming there was no death, then and there's no way mosquitoes like drew blood before, right?
Because they would cause pain.
Right.
But how would they not cause pain?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know, like genetics and stuff. Is it possible it's like adapted from a certain type of bug?
No, I don't think so. What do they do
Maybe
for society?
no.
I just
You know what?
don't understand this.
I bet you that it was more of like a hummingbird kind of deal with their thingamajigs. Like they use their beaks to get water or honey or other stuff like that.
Maybe that's
So
what I
that's
think
probably
of.
what happened.
But like, here's the real question that I ask myself when I think of mosquitoes. What would happen if we made them extinct? And would the world be sorry?
Yeah, it's a good question. Surely no one missed chiggers at least.
Ah, chiggers? Those are my questions.
Mosquitoes kill more people per year than any other animal on Earth
I'd believe it.
because of malaria.
I believe it.
Malaria. Well, you know who's not annoying like a mosquito is Huckleberry Finn because he's awesome. Because
Yes.
he roams around. Like honestly, the chapters of and I don't know. The really when I started getting into the book was when he was starting to fake his own death.
Yes.
I think that was. I mean, like it's funny because Mark Twain is telling it and because Huck's telling it to you, and he's proud of himself and he's like Tom Sawyer couldn't have done this any better than I can, and he's just having a lot of fun going about cutting up a hog, planning his escape, and all that kind of stuff is awesome because it's just Huck using his smarts. Every boy really does at some point. Like if your son or your brother, if any boy at some point doesn't really want to run away from home and go to the wild, is he a man? Is he going to be a man? Is he a true American? These are the questions one must ask themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what is not fun about planning your own death and escaping and like not feeling sorry about any of it? Like
And because, I mean, he
legitimately
stacks the deck
plastering
because
blood like around everywhere. Tomahawk, like the whole thing, just like it's so
Yeah.
elaborate and so beautiful. I don't know.
And also because he stacks the deck, right? It's like I mean, you'd honestly feel guilty. I mean, if you and I did it, we wouldn't do it, but we'd feel guilty because we have great families who love us and take care of us. But Huck doesn't got that. You know, he's got an abusive dad who should have been taken away by the law. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it really is wish fulfillment in that regard, which is why people like Harry Potter as well. It's just wish fulfillment of what if you could have this perfect scenario where it's perfectly moral and okay to do that. I guess you could have an argument it's not moral to trick your friends and the Widow Douglas and everybody like that, but, you know, that's that. I will say, though, I think that you honestly, at the very end of the novel, you like Jim more than Huck at like the very end.
Yes, because he's like he
what you call it?
actually has a set of morals and actually cares about something.
Right, exactly. Huck is this brat who won't stand up to Tom Sawyer and just free Jim. And at the end, we learned Tom was even more of a brat because Jim was free in the first place. And then Jim is the guy who takes care of Tom when he got shot, and sticks around even though he knows he's going to be captured and things like that, right? And at the end, you mean Jim's obviously one of your favorite characters all the way through with Huck, but at the same time, you're like, man, I just like Jim better than Huck. You know what I mean? So I will say that's a failure of the end of the novel, and we'll talk about it later. Is the end is a bit because it makes you not like Huck and Tom and things like that. And would Jim really have let this go on? Anyway, it raised a bunch of questions, and overall, I think brings down the book just a little bit. But we'll get to there when we get there. Anything else to say about Huck before we move on to Jim?
Just how I think that like one of the things that we were just talking about how like we would feel bad about faking our deaths and just because of like ditching everybody. But
Yeah.
I think the thing that like why this is an argument for why this book could be terrible and why it's so amazing as well. It shows you everything that you wouldn't do because you're too, I don't know, not because you're too good of a person, just because like we have a set of morals that we live by, and so it shows you what happens when you don't live by those and how much fun it could be. But that's also not good.
I mean,
so it's both
at the same time. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's like good and bad because it like it portrays it in a good light, but then it shows you how it. Anyways, whatever you were gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark Twain does let Huck feel the consequences of having tricked everybody, and especially that one of the better scenes in the book where he fakes his death to Jim, right? Or he fakes leaving Jim alone in the swamp early on.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that scene? And then he comes back, and that scene with Jim. Anyway, like that's like Mark Twain saying Huck's not right here, and Huck swore never to do it again or whatever. But at the same time, you're right. Like he does. I think maybe he's having his cake a little bit because it is fun and he knows it's fun to have Huck fake his death and run away. But at the same time, he's not letting Huck completely off the hook. Like he's letting people Huck feel the pain of having faked his death to so many people. You know what I mean? By the way, Isaiah just texted me. He said, "Bro, you posted a pic of me." That's what I did.
And yes, I love how you're checking Patreon while you're at Disney.
Today might be their off day. They had like one day where they weren't going to go to the park. They're just going to rest.
That's right. But what is the point of that? The idea of a vacation is getting so tired that you come back home and you like faint.
Maybe.
That's my idea of it. Actually, there are two ideas of a vacation. It's either that for me or it's the entire opposite where you come home and like you get up and go for the rest of the year.
Yeah. What you mean. Anyway, Jim. What do you think about Jim? Jim's a great character. I like him. Do you?
Jim honestly might be my favorite character.
I mean, like we talked about last week, you can't have this book told from any other way than Huck, and Huck makes the book fun. But in terms of characters, Jim's up there.
Jim's like the Sam of
you're right.
Of this book. It's just like,
and even more funny is the fact that the guy who played Frodo played Huck Finn in a movie, and read me the book.
Ooh, necessary. Yeah. I've never watched the movie actually.
I have neither. I've heard. Didn't John Williams do the music for that? I don't know. Anyway, Jim.
Jim. You know, I could be a Jim. Fun fact. I could be a Jim.
I'm gonna have to cut that out. That's racist.
No, it's my first name is James.
Oh, fair.
James
I
or
see.
James.
That might be.
So I could be a Jim.
That way more than I should have. Okay, I see. Okay, I didn't know that was. You should have clarified though. Like, anybody listening to that would have been like, "Whoa." Okay. Well, that makes more sense now. I guess I'll leave it in.
I'm not racist, guys.
In fact, should I start calling Tanner Jim?
For the rest of this episode, I am now Jim. Effective immediately.
Okay, Jim. Okay. Yeah. Well, Jim, I will say that Jim from the book does bear your name very well. I think that first, some of Mark Twain's preachier stuff is about Christianity, which we'll get to later because I think we need to talk about it some more. And also be about race and about slavery and things like that. Also, I'm not clear. This book had to have taken place before the Civil War because of buying and selling slaves and such. But at the same time, Mark Twain wrote it in the 80s, I think. So I need to look this up because I think it's important for discussion.
Yeah, how is he not like... Yeah, I don't know. How is he not kicked out of society after writing a book like this after the Civil War?
Okay, it takes place in the 30s or 40s.
Okay, maybe. Yeah. But, like, even still, like, that's soon after the Civil War. That's got to be a touchy subject.
Well, I think that he's trying to make some points about it, honestly. Which is why Huck Finn is one of those banned books in history, which we'll talk about next, actually. But I think Jim, it provides really like I said, the preaching point of Huck Finn, which you go from Jim being this very superstitious side character that you don't really think much of to becoming really the most human character in the book. Having these moving moments. We talked about one of them. We talked about a couple of them. You know, Jim hides his dad's death until the very end, and Huck having these moments with Jim. Really, most moving moments are about Jim, and Jim adds this human element to the book and grows from this, stereotypical slave to this really awesome character that is great and you love. So I think that Jim provides an excellent point of, Huck having to deal with it. He's lovable enough to where you completely. I mean, today it's obviously okay. Huck, okay, we'll talk. Let's you know what? Let's go into our racism discussion because the turning point of the novel is Jim is turned over basically by the King and the Duke, right? And he's captured, and then Huck's deciding if he's going to go rescue him or not. And he's been told all his life that, rescuing a Negro is evil, basically. It's a sin. And so he has to basically declare to himself that he was going to literally go to hell when he dies because he's going to go save Jim, right? So like it makes, and the thing is, Mark Twain makes that work. Like even as somebody who's a Christian who obviously doesn't believe that, saving an innocent human or doesn't believe slavery is right because I'm a Christian, I don't buy that he's going to go to hell simply because he saves a Negro like that. But he makes the moment work. Like it works as a character moment, if that makes sense. Like Huck would do that because, number one, all he's seen of Christianity is some straw men of bad people, and also people who have told him lies about people like Jim, who he loves. So you love Jim so much that the character moment works really well, even for someone who disagrees with maybe the reasoning of Huck's internal debate, I guess, if that makes sense. Because Jim's such a great character, it works. I think that's what it is. And like we talked about, Jim becomes your favorite at the end because of just his moral center of taking care of Tom, even when Tom was a big fat jerk to him. And even a bigger jerk after we find out what happens.
Yeah, I just think that, you summed it up very nicely. I don't know what to say after that.
Yep. And what is Jim like? You've read this book more than I have. You've grown up with this book more than I have. Is there any like personal connection that you have to Jim at all?
Kind of. But to be honest, I kind of just skipped over all of his parts because my favorite parts used to be the parts with the King and the Duke. And so I would just skip to the part in the book with Huck and the King and the Duke just because those were hilarious.
Yeah.
Those
you
were
talk about them now? Oh, sorry.
Sure. Honestly, those might be one of the only books that I've actually laughed out loud at. Because the jokes and just the stupidity is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Like just all of the stupid plays that they would do of them just being professional comedians. Let's use that word very lightly. But
I mean, they're just con artists, so.
Yeah. They're hilarious, though. I love how they were just... The one part where they just, like, started fighting and they were like, well, I'm a long-lost king in search of his kingdom, and I'm the Duke, who is... it's just, like...
Heir to a dookie, yeah.
Yeah, it's just so stupid and hilarious. Start calling them your majesty or your lordship.
Yeah, and Huck secretly knows that they're not who they say they are, but he knows because his dad's one of them that it's better just to let these people have their way than to go about contradicting them. My favorite moment, though, is Jim is talking to Huck. He's like, listen now, you don't go picking up any more kings or dukes, all right? Because two's good enough for me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's kind of fun stuff. But I will say also, they're also really funny early on. Some of the most like saddening and disheartening moments of the book are when Huck and Jim trying to make their escape, and the King and the Duke come back and join them on the raft. And you're like, man, like they were almost rid of these idiots, these evil jerks, and then they didn't. So yeah, they go really fast from being really funny to really disheartening at the same time. So it's really effective in that way as well.
Yeah, you come to realize their stupidity and learn that a quick dime is not very enjoyable sometimes.
Nope. I will say that one of my favorite parts of the book is when they were the King and the Duke trying to trick the town into thinking that they are the brother of the guy who just died, and then again get the money and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
It was
early
on.
by
It was
far the
done really
worst.
well with just like the tin. Well, sorry, I said it was the best. One of my favorite parts.
Oh, you said.
In
I
terms
thought you
of,
said
like,
it was terrible.
no.
I think that the way it happened was just terrible. It was like so mean.
No,
Like,
I agree. I'm not saying it was good for them to do that. And I'm saying like the part of Huck realizing that he can't do this, and then the tension of, is he gonna get caught? Oh no, the townspeople are gonna lynch everybody. What's gonna happen? All that kind of stuff was really well done. And the little, teenage romance between him and Mary, I think was her name, right?
yeah.
So, and that's when you really started to turn on the King and the Duke, right? Is, okay, these people are just evil.
Yeah, for real. I loved when the
So.
second that really got funny when the second king. I mean like the actual
The second
brothers
guy
came.
came, yeah.
Yeah, when the actual
Right.
brothers came, and they like put their fake accents to shame. It was hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Huck is just lying brazenly in front of the jury of people who are maybe gonna hang them all, and they're just like, kid, go learn to lie, okay? Stop kidding around with us. That's all good stuff.
Yeah.
That's all good stuff.
When they go find the money inside the coffin. Yes.
Yeah.
Success.
And it gives the opportunity for them to run away and stuff. All fun. Yep. All right. Well, let's talk about Mark Twain's use of the N-word. All right. I think we've already talked maybe some about this, especially in our To Kill a Mockingbird Part 1 episode. We tackled a lot about people trying to ban To Kill a Mockingbird because of its use of the N-word. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on, obviously you have no problem reading it. You've read it since you were young. How do you feel about the use of the N-word in literature such as this, and specifically the case of Huckleberry Finn?
If anything, it makes it believable. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Just, if you're going to try and portray a time, use the words that they're using, like, to describe people, even if they're, like, terrible words. If you're trying to get your point across, sometimes it's a little bit brazen, but, yeah, I don't think that...
Yeah, which is why, unfortunately, war movies sometimes, need to have that language.
Yeah. It just leads to believable dialogue. I mean, that's the only reason that I accept it, and I don't have huge problems with it. Just because I know that it was used in that time a lot. It's like using the, it's like saying the B word, the other one, during, like the Revolutionary period. It was just like, that was a word that was commonly used, referring to a lot of people, illegitimate sons and whatnot, so.
Right. Like it actually has a use.
It actually has a use, just like the N-word
that we used to.
Yeah, just like the
Well,
N-word
like
kind of had a use and didn't. It was just a.
I mean, it's a dirty word. Like, we're not affirming.
No.
Anybody,
I'm not ever gonna use it. Like, don't ever hear me use it. But
and I will say, like, Huck Finn at the same time, like moreover, Tanner's right. Like, they would have used this word, and to not do it is not only not being accurate, not giving believable dialogue, but also covering up the fact that we should have a conversation about it. That we can, covering up the idea that we could talk about this horrible time in our country's history where this word was norm and it was terrible, right? Because this book has been banned. I think it's top 5 banned books in America, which I think actually, when we're recording this, it might be a banned book week. But at the same time, it's banned because people don't want kids to be able to learn the word and say it right. And if that happens, it's on them. It's not the book, or necessarily, because the book isn't portraying it as a good thing, but it's saying, look how dirty it was used. Look how derogatory and put down and so wrongly stereotypical it was. Really, Jim is the refutation to the N-word usage in the book, because he's just awesome and great, right? And at the same time, again, it's covering up the idea that we should be able to have a conversation about yeah, I mean, it was used like it was in this book, and like that's bad and that's wrong, and we should be able to have that conversation without it just being completely erased, right? So I think we should be able to read this book and be able to have a mature conversation. Like there's a difference between not allowing a person to engage in certain content, which there are obviously times for that. Like you're not gonna show somebody pornography and then just have a conversation about it, because that's not how it works. But there are certain things like this where you should read them, you should watch them, you should engage in this media, and then have a conversation about it and why it's not right and things like that. I think that banning it and To Kill a Mockingbird, for example, as well, covers up the fact that and erases the fact that we should be able to have a conversation about this.
Yeah, it's important to have conversations about things and not just... Because too often in our society, we're just like we're not discussing things anymore. Everything is just kind of swept under the rug. I mean, look at our government. Oh my gosh. Like, that is just... Everything's underneath the table. Everything's underhand, and nobody's talking about it. Like, nobody's talking about it. And we just need to be able to talk about things and have discussions about why it's wrong. It's like, I think that I saw an article the other day. This school board was, I mean, everything's about school boards these days when you're talking about books.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
right.
There was a school board that was discussing this book, and they had to send children out of the room before they started reading the book. But not even that. They sent out the children, everybody underneath the age of 18, in this school board meeting before they read this whatever quote out of this book. And then they spent 20 minutes discussing whether or not they should read it out loud. Like, there are some things about that that are just like, first of all, why is that even there if we're still talking about it? Like, that shouldn't be a book at this point. And then, second of all, because it was actually bad. It wasn't like...
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, this is just like one.
It wasn't just as an N-word, or if it has.
Yeah, it was like, it was actually bad. And so, like, there are some things like that where I understand, like, we shouldn't have these, and these should not
right,
be
there's
accessed.
a line of, we should not be able to read these and talk about them, yeah.
Yeah, but besides that, we shouldn't bring this line so far down that we're banning good literature, like To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Like, these are
Such
actual good pieces that have legitimate...
They're trying to say something about the fact that they're using the word. You know what I mean?
Yes, like Atticus Finch. These are characters that should not be forgotten. Like, these need to be staples that are remembered, like Beowulf, that like just need to have these messages that continue to be repeated, right? And so I just don't think that, like, yes, these are bad things, but like people use profane language all of the time, just like out in the open, and to ban a book because of one bad racist word, like, why? I don't get the point of it. How about that?
Well, and also I will say this does go on both sides of the political spectrum as well. I mean, obviously the left is mostly in favor of, at least the people who want to ban this book and other books like it are mostly on the left. At the same time, the right has passed certain bills on critical race theory, which obviously me and Ted aren't for critical race theory. Nobody is, in the right minds at least. But at the same time, some of these bills are so broad that they could potentially harm conversations that would be had about slavery, because teachers are too scared that if they say the wrong thing, they're going to get prosecuted, right? So at the same time, there is a certain place for setting laws and parameters of things that we shouldn't talk about, but there are things such as America's unfortunate past that need to be talked about, and banning Huck Finn does not help that in any way. So,
yeah.
Let's briefly touch on Mark Twain's handling of Christianity, then we talk about the end. We got to get out of here. So, I will say we talked about it briefly last week, and then I finished the second half of the book, and I was like, man, like he goes to town, especially in the one of the basically the end of the second act where Huck's deciding to go after Jim. He goes after Christianity, and every character who believes in it is not... I mean, Widow Douglas is probably the best character, but even then, she's obviously severely flawed, and then you have the revival camp and things like that. Like, he's obviously going after Christianity and doesn't like it at all, and frames it in such a way to whereas the big emotional moment of the book makes sense to side against Christianity. So I think that people need to be wary of Mark Twain's anti-Christianity here because it's very destructive, I think.
Yeah, he definitely targets Christianity a lot in the second half. And I think that it's just a chew and spit in that manner. I think that it's just a really good portrayal of what the South was like. And just how religion and like, I'm saying religion, not Christianity, religion, like this off-brand thing that everybody's like, ooh, we do this, we believe in God. Yes. Like like Vatican City right now. I was listening to something, like, just the fact that just how religion, like, people that don't actually care about it, they just say that they do, right? People that say that they do. And I think that this is just a good point of Mark Twain was showing us the people that say that they do. And
but I mean, like, Mark Twain is no friend of Christianity. He obviously isn't trying to reveal the fake Christians. Like, he's just targeting Christianity. But what Tanner's saying is, in doing so, he actually revealed to us the people who aren't real Christians and just just distort the Bible and God's word, things like that.
Yeah, and just how they're not actually following God the way that they're doing that. They don't actually care about other people. And, I mean, it's bad. And he definitely hits on the fact that he doesn't like it. And while he doesn't like Christianity as a whole, I don't think that that's a reason to not read the book.
Yeah. All right, well, there we've had a great conversation about Christianity and Huck Finn, in case people thought that our conversation last time was lackluster. All right, so we've talked about Tom Sawyer and the trick at the end and things like that. So, man, I don't mind necessarily bringing Tom Sawyer back because I think he's fun and he's a character in the universe, obviously. I just think that the entire ending is slow and boring, the most boring part of the book, and makes you think lower of Huck and Tom and everybody like that. So I don't like it. I don't know how we could have ended it better. Maybe him and Jim decide to go back to where they're from and realize that Jim is free, and that Huck's dad is dead, and that he can live like a rich person for the rest of his life. I don't know how it could have ended better, but definitely don't like this ending.
Yeah, it definitely like kind of tints the how good the book is. I enjoy the first part more than I do the ending, definitely. But the ending's kind of interesting as well, and I enjoy the part where they're planning the escape and just Tom being stupid, but I just don't. Oh, I'm sorry. My train of thought is just dying.
You said that you like the part of
I do like the part where they're
preparing.
Yeah, where they're preparing, and I like all of Tom's stupid ideas on what or what not to do. And so I just think that that's pretty funny, and I like Tom's elaborate plans and stupidity.
I like the idea that they're stealing this thing and putting it back so many times that she has no idea how many things she owns of it or whatever.
Oh yeah,
that's funny.
I love the part where they they send the note to get them to get them ready, and then they have to steal elaborately every plank for the ladder, and Huck's just like, why don't we just take the ladder? And he's like, no, we have to steal every plank.
Haven't you read anything? Yeah. I mean, at some point though,
we must dig with spoons.
Yeah, my gosh. I remember going on a walk and listening to this and being like, oh my gosh, how many, now they're creating a sigil for him. The coat of arms. Now gosh, when is this gonna end? It was at that point where it's like, oh my goodness, like come on. But
this is so what little kids do, though. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, admit it. It's kind of fun too, though. Like,
yeah, it is. It's a little bit fun. It's just a little bit annoying. It's that kind of thing where you have that little cousin who's a little bit annoying, but at the same time fun. So that's what it's like. Like Huck, literally Huck just made this drastic decision of he thinks he's gonna go to hell because he's gonna try to save Jim, and would he really go through all of this just because he idolizes Tom? I don't really think so. And all it does is just add to how great a character Jim is and things like that. Besides that, it adds nothing, and I think in fact detracts away from the book. So I think that overall, if it's a great book, and when we rate it in a sec, it's gonna get a lot of points from me, but it's gonna lose some because of the ending for sure. So speaking of, how many rafts out of 20 would you give to Huck Finn?
Out of 20, wow. It's like we're just gonna add dots in between all the dots.
Yeah.
I'll go with what's a 7? What's a 7 in that? That's like
7 out of 10. It's 14, right? No, it's not, is it?
It's not 14. That's like 16.
Yeah, it is, I think.
16-ish.
16-ish?
It would have to be 14 though. That's so weird. That's why I don't like these. I'm doing 16. Just slightly over.
Okay.
16-ish.
Yeah. I'm going to give it 17.5. Doc at 0.5 for anti-Christianity, and then 2 points for the end. Other than that, great book.
Wow. What a gymnastics score right there. 17.5. We're deducting 0.3 for this, and that.
And for this and that, yeah. You think it's a kid's book? You think people should read it younger?
I enjoyed it when I was younger. I don't necessarily think that means that younger kids should read it. I definitely know that it definitely influences how I think of things.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that you shouldn't read it while you're too young, but hey, a mature 12 or 13-year-old or whatever.
I mean, I'd say shoot for 10. Shoot for 10 for like an abridged version.
Reading aloud.
Shoot for 10 for an abridged version,
oh, yeah.
and then you'll enjoy.
Read the abridged versions.
Shoot for 10 for the abridged version, and then for like once you're a little bit older, like 12 or 13, read the actual version. Oh, the original. Yes.
Expectations are set and then overcome.
And then they just like destroy. It's like,
yep.
This is a great book when you're younger, and then you're like, oh, this is just getting a little boring now. Well, let's read the original. Just like destroys every wall. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right, well, we got to do some donor shout-outs real fast and get out of here because we're almost we're going long here. You're going to go to patreon.com/spokenit, and you're going to support us for $5 or more. I don't know why I'm commanding you. If you want to, do that and support us and do enough money, and we'll shout you out on the show like we're about to do. I'm just going to run through these real quick because we're running late. Nana, Vimpapi and Wayla, Mike and Sylvia, Mike and Laura, Jenny and Sam, Moses, Zara, Anna, Emily, Becky, Lizzie, and Keenan. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to join that list, make sure you go. Yes, we do. Make sure you go to patreon.com/spokenit. Support us there. Leave us a 5-star rating and review if you haven't already. It really helps us out. We'll see you next time with The Tale of Despero. But until then,
keep on booking it.